Good afternoon, everyone, on this beautiful, lovely day. Yeah, we definitely love the good weather. Juneteenth commemorates the day when Union Army Major General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, and informed enslaved people of their emancipation, which Congress passed on January 31st, 1865, and ratified on December 7th, 1865. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery in the United States on June 19th, 1865. The people of Galveston have celebrated this day since 1866. For decades, efforts have been made to establish Juneteenth as a federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery. President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day into law on Thursday, June 17th, 2021. Yep, absolutely. Juneteenth is celebrated annually on June 19th. For us, it is only fitting to combine Juneteenth with a visit to the John Brown Tannery in Guys Mills, Pennsylvania, where we are today. Saturday, June 21st, 2025, where John Brown played a significant role in freeing enslaved people. Please note that an exhibit is available for viewing during the food and fellowship time as mentioned in the program. Read not only about John Brown, but also about Harm Jan Heidi Cooper, who participated in the Underground Railroad. The Heidi Coopers were among several families in Meadville who supported the Underground Railroad, including the Randolphs, Bartons, Bishops, and Powells. See John Brown's farewell letter to his family. There is also a sheet at the exhibit table for anyone who wishes to request copies of information regarding the program. We will not have time for Q&A because the research is extensive. Due to the program's complexity, we are adhering to a timeline outlined in your program. Please visit the table during fellowship to purchase t-shirts and commemorate this occasion. My daughter Rhonda is over there manning that table. Thank you, Rhonda. We invite you to keep your program because it is all about our history. We need to add sheets under sponsorship, and I need you guys to know that. They were amazing. The event is being recorded today by Mr. Kevin Tomini at Armstrong Cable, reported by Dr. Mike Crowley at the Meadville Tribune, and photographed by Miss Shannon Roy at the Meadville Tribune. Our Meadville 1825 subcommittee was fortunate to plan this program in cooperation with the John Brown Heritage Association. Mr. Mark Peaster, the Secretary Treasurer of the association, will now offer a welcome and provide us with information about the association. Mr. Peaster?
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Juneteenth is a recently created federal holiday to remember and celebrate a key date in the freeing of the last enslaved people in America. The national holiday commemorates when Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, to declare and enforce the emancipation of enslaved blacks in that distant former Confederate state. The military order for states in Texas to be set free occurred about 2.5 months after the American Civil War ended. To observe Juneteenth here at the John Brown Tannery site in Richmond Township, Crawford County, Pennsylvania, is altogether fitting. The stone ruins you see are what's left of a building that John Brown erected for his livelihood then of tanning animal hides into leather. These great stone walls from that business endure as a legacy of when Brown lived a peaceful, enterprising pioneer life in Crawford County between 1826 and 1835. After he left Pennsylvania, John Brown's lifelong opposition to slavery grew deeper and deeper. He came to believe that God had called him to take up arms in order to strike a blow that would dismantle slavery and deliver those held in bondage by it. In 1859, now a militant abolitionist, Brown would shock the nation by raiding the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, today West Virginia, in a failed attempt to rally and spread slave revolt in the South. Although captured, convicted, and hanged on criminal charges, Brown succeeded in challenging the moral legitimacy of slavery in a way that quickened the start of the Civil War and thereby led to the end of slavery in the United States. Just as his old Tannery walls continue to stand, so lives on John Brown's legacy as a champion of the anti-slavery cause and the equality of all racial groups. Thus, observing Juneteenth at this historic site is appropriate indeed. My name is Mark Peaster. I welcome you to this site on behalf of the John Brown Heritage Association, or JBHA for short, for which I serve as its Secretary Treasurer. The JBHA is a small, all-volunteer, private, nonprofit organization based in Crawford County. We are the trustee owner of the John Brown Tannery site, and we seek to preserve, maintain, and interpret this landmark for the public to visit free. The Meadville 1825 bicentennial planners and their partnering sponsors wanted to hold this year's Juneteenth celebration at the Tannery site and are doing so in splendid and extremely well-organized fashion, of course in cooperation with the John Brown Heritage Association. So a big hand for the sponsors and those who put this together. I'll briefly discuss the Tannery site and the association's history and work. Later, Donna Coburn will talk about Brown's life in New Richmond, which is the present-day name for this place, and will comment also on Brown's abolitionist convictions. Donna and her husband Gary live on part of the original John Brown farm, homestead, and farm across the road from the Tannery site, right over there. Gary is also on the association's board of directors. In November 1825, John Brown bought a 200-acre tract of land in this sparsely settled area known at the time as Clark's Corners or Randolph. Then, in May 1826, Brown, with his wife Diane and their 3 young boys, moved from their home in Hudson, Ohio, to the property he had purchased here. Within 4 months, Brown cleared a farm, built a log cabin and barn, both are gone now, on the slope near where the Coburns have their home, and erected a 2-story tannery at this spot. Brown was attracted to this wilderness land because it was cheap, and it seemed to appeal to his fondness for rustic living. The property also had 3 essentials he needed for his tanning operations: bark from trees, a source of water, and a location near a road. Brown had learned the tanning trade from his father in Ohio, who also was a staunch abolitionist. As practiced in the early 19th century, the process of tanning hides from cattle, oxen, and other animals involved 4 basic steps. First was to give the skinned and salted hides an initial washing and cleaning. And second was to soak the hides in a series of vats or pits filled with increasingly strong solutions of lime and water so that the animal hair could be loosened and scraped off along with any remaining flesh or fat. And third was to immerse the hides in another set of vats containing dissolved tannins. Tannins are natural chemicals released from ground up tree bark that eventually transformed the hides into leather. And fourth was to finish the leather by drying it, rubbing or pounding it to smooth the surface, and then oiling it to be soft and pliable. The entire process could take 2 years. And it was a smelly process too. Brown's land had plenty of oak and hemlock trees, and the peeled and milled bark of which produced especially high concentrations of tannin. The farm had springs that supplied adequate water to rinse the hides and make acid solutions of lime and tannin. In fact, the spring over there on the Coburn's property feeds the pond. Finally, the tannery was close to the so-called State Road, which is present-day Route 77, laid out in 1817 to run from Meadville through eastern Crawford County and into Warren County, all the way to the New York line. The State Road and connecting routes enabled Brown to bring wagon loads of hides and saleable livestock to his tannery via an arrangement he had with a business partner in Ohio. Brown also could use the State Road to haul his finished leather to that Ohio partner and to merchants in Meadville. From finished leather, goods such as boots, shoes, saddles, and harnesses could be made. It's believed the tannery employed a dozen or so workers at one point and had 18 vats. Some of those vats or pits have been excavated in recent years by the French Archaeological Society in cooperation with the association. Those archaeology digs revealed the vats to be rectangular troughs about 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, 3 feet deep, with wooden sides and clay bottoms. It's likely the lime vats were outside on the tannery grounds, and the tanning vats, or at least some of them, were inside the structure on the ground level, and the drying and the finishing areas were on the wooden frame upper floor that no longer exists. After Brown and his family returned to Ohio in 1835, the tannery received a series of different uses and owners. It remained a tannery until at least 1858, then was a cheese factory, then a jelly factory, and a corn grinding mill by 1883. The upper floor was converted to a residence, and the lower level housed a corn grinding mill by 1883. By 1890 rather. And a photograph around that time shows an addition on the back of the tannery. In 1907, a damaging fire broke out. The second floor living quarters were burned down, along with any wood construction elsewhere in the tannery. The tannery site has been preserved through 4 successive movements. The first started with a group of men, 3 from Corry, 1 from New York City, who in 1916 acquired the tannery remains and a half acre of the grounds in hopes of raising enough money to restore the structure in memory of John Brown. They were unsuccessful, however, and they looked for an organization to help. In 1924, the New Richmond and Pomona Granges in Crawford County helped establish a John Brown Memorial Association. Its goal was to perpetuate and beautify the tannery site and the John Brown farm as a memorial to him. The president for many years was Bess Heath Olmsted, daughter of Guy Heath, who was one of the Corry men and whose wife's family was related to John Brown's second wife, Mary Ann Day. Brown married Mary Ann after his first wife, Diane, died in 1832, shortly after giving birth to a baby boy who died as well. Diane and the infant, along with John and Diane's 4-year-old son, who had died the year before, are buried atop the hill across the road from here in a little cemetery on the Coburn's property. The Memorial Association made several improvements to the tannery site in 1934. Masonry repairs were made to the tannery foundation walls, and a stone barrier fence was erected along the front of the site. You can see remnants of the fence at that corner and that corner. And that fence or barrier is put up in part with help from the Works Project Administration during the Depression era. Landscaping was done, and a John Brown plaque in the boulder there was installed, as was a memorial tablet on the forward-facing wall there. From the late 1920s through the 1930s, the Memorial Association had picnics at a grove on the farm. Crawford County Judge Thomas Prather often presided at those large gatherings, which included speeches, music, and dramas. The Memorial Association was no longer functioning by the time of World War II. In 1947, Dr. Charles Olson acquired the John Brown Farm. 2 years later, the heirs of Guy Heath deeded the tannery site to Olson on a trustee condition to maintain it publicly as a monument to John Brown. Olson grew up in eastern Crawford County, became a physician practicing in Chicago. He recruited a caretaker for the farm and set up a small museum to house his collection of historical relics and documents related to John Brown and Abraham Lincoln. In 1951, he created a new organization, the Third Movement. It was called the John Brown Historical Society to succeed the earlier John Brown Memorial Association. The Society's secretary, who also had been the Memorial Association secretary, was Blanche Sayre Amy. As a young girl, she had witnessed the fire at the tannery while it was a residence owned by her grandmother. Other board members of the society included representatives from Allegheny College, as well as author and historian Boyd Stutler, whose extensive research on John Brown was acquired later by the West Virginia State Archives, much of it available online. Dr. Olson had various plans for restoring the John Brown farm and tannery, including rebuilding its upper floor. Unfortunately, before able to complete all of his plans, his health declined from being seriously injured in 2 automobile accidents in which he was the innocent party. He died in 1962. His legacy survives in the person of his grandson, Gary Coburn, who, with his wife, Donna, now owns and resides on the John Brown farm that Dr. Olson had acquired. The current John Brown Heritage Association evolved in 1973 and 1974, mobilized chiefly by Dale Beach, whose wife, Evelyn, was one of Dr. Olson's 2 daughters. The other daughter was Louise Coburn, Gary's late mother. The initial name of the organization was the John Brown Amphitheater Association. The name reflected Mr. Beach's interest in particular of developing an amphitheater on the farm for outdoor dramas on John Brown and for portrayals of other types. In 1975, in view of the organization's nonprofit incorporation and its considerable membership by that time, Dr. Olson's daughters chose to transfer their father's trustee ownership of the tannery site to the association. In 1979, by which time the amphitheater goal no longer seemed either achievable or applicable, the organization officially changed its name to the current John Brown Heritage Association. During its first 2 decades, from the 1970s through the mid-1990s, the JBHA was able to undertake much. The accomplishments included organizing annual pilgrimage walks to this site, which typically would follow some type of John Brown program at the New Richmond Church. The organization hosted special speakers such as Brown biographers, began publishing an annual newsletter, maintaining archival information and a library of books on John Brown and related topics, getting the site named to the National Register of Historic Places, erecting the screening fence along the sides and back of this site, and designing, raising funds, and completing elements of a memorial park, that's what you see here, at the tannery site, including the parking area, stormwater improvements, and this entrance plaza and walkways. Among the members quite involved in the association's work during those years, and most of them have passed now, but my apologies for overlooking someone, but they were Ken Williams, Dr. Arthur Crawford, Joe Johnson, Homer Thornton, George Rutherford, John Shields, Mabel Cable, and Ed Ettinger. Ken Williams, a longtime managing editor with the Meadville Tribune, was the association's first president. He was my mother's first cousin, and their grandfather was a Union soldier with the 4th Pennsylvania Cavalry. Ken had a keen interest in the Civil War, as well as in John Brown and the Underground Railroad. In a 1973 research paper, Ken estimated the network of Underground Railroad activists in Crawford County, John Brown, Richard Henderson, and others, in total assisted perhaps up to 2,500 escaped slaves between the years of 1832 and 1855. Ed Ettinger, who headed the Crawford County Planning Office for many years, was the association's secretary from 1974 to 2019. He was a driving force in organizing and implementing the association's work during that 45-year span. Although retired now as the association's secretary-treasurer, Ed remains a board member. In more recent times, the association has created and installed 2 outdoor interpretive panels. This one. Where's the other one? Yeah, there. At the site to interpret John Brown's life in Crawford County and its national significance in the abolition of slavery. The association has assisted with archaeological excavations at the Tannery site. I mentioned the uncovering of vats, for instance. The association has created an exhibit area in the Richmond Township Recreation Building to display Tannery-related artifacts and historical photographs, developed a website and a video pertaining to the association and the Tannery site, and continued maintaining care of the Tannery walls and grounds, mowing it, repairing masonry if necessary. The John Brown Heritage thanks you for coming to the Tannery site for this Juneteenth event. We have some of our association brochures. If you'd like to look over one or take a copy, perhaps they're all gone. We also have a 3-ring binder on display on that table over there that contains our annual newsletters from 1976 to the present. Immediately after this event, the association will have its exhibit area at the Richmond Township Recreation Building open for viewing for a short time if any of you would want and be able to go there. If so, you could let me know, or John, could you stand up a minute, please? John Lawrence is one of our members and a Richmond Township Planning Commission member, and he would be able to unlock the area for viewing. So enjoy the rest of this fine Juneteenth program, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Peaster. Another round of applause. That was a lot of amazing information. It is now my pleasure to introduce Reverend Jackie Roberson, who will deliver the invocation and sermonette. Reverend Roberson is the Chief Executive Officer of the Family, Children, and Community Association and the President of the Meadville NAACP chapter. He joined us in Meadville from his role as assistant pastor at Rennet House Outreach Church in Buffalo, New York. He became minister at the age of 8. Amazing. We call upon him today as our minister. Reverend Roberson, will you share a word of God?
Glad to, yes.
Reverend Roberson, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it. My mom named me Jackie Roberson, so that's fine. How you all doing today? I can't hear you. I might have a slight hearing deficiency. I said, how you all doing today? All right. This is a celebration, and my role here is to bring church at the John Brown Tannery site. So we're going to try to see if we can accomplish to do that. First of all, I want to give thanks to the matriarch of our community, a woman who really needs no introduction, but has done a lot of great work within our community and will last long after many years. And that's none other than Dr. Armindia Dixon. Can we give it up for her today? She had a vision and has had many visions throughout the years, and this is a great celebration today that she's put on today. So we're grateful to her. We're thankful for our honorable mayor, Mayor Jamie Kinder, being here with us today. Can we give it up for her? Commissioner Chris Seeley is here today. Let's give it up for him. And most importantly, all of you are here. So give it up for yourselves being here. All right, so Dr. Dixon has instructed me very seriously that I only have 10 minutes, so I got to make sure that I go within that 10-minute frame. Some of you have heard this before, many may not. I might make you mad when I talk about a lot of the things that I talk about, but to me, it's my truth. And we can argue, we can debate about what your truth is, but I'm going to tell you what my truth is. As being a black man in a predominantly white environment, and also being a black man in America. And I'm not here necessarily to talk about John Tannery, our illustrious speaker before me, talked great about him. Let's give him a hand one more time. He did a great job. John Brown, I'm sorry, I said John Tannery, but John Brown was a great man. He had a vision. He was 59 years old when he passed away. He did a lot within his 59 years. He had 2 wives. That's a lot right there, right? But one passed away. And so it's very interesting how a person can have a vision and it comes to pass. And so what is my vision for today? What is the vision that I want to share with you? The vision that I want to share with you is having a community of love, okay? Now, I know America and the world is doing a lot of different things. We got a lot of different thoughts going on. We got a lot of different political situations that's happening. We got somebody in the White House right now that I'm not too fond of. I'm not even going to talk about too many other people. But the fact of the matter is, we need to build a community not based upon hate, but upon love. Okay?
Say it again.
We need to build a community based upon love. And no matter what religion you are, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, no matter where you come from, what side of the track you come from, we are all desiring longing for love. We're looking for love. The reason why we have so much violence going on and so much hatred going on, and the person in the White House, he's looking for love, and he has not found it for all of the 70 years he has been there. I know, it's okay. You don't have to laugh, but it's the truth. We're all looking for love, and so when you extend hatred and you extend bigotry, there's something on the inside of you that's not right. So we need to look introspectively every day and figure out, am I actually exemplifying love? It goes beyond just, the boardrooms, and it goes beyond courtrooms and all of those places. We need to exemplify love, but even around here, as we're talking with each other and we're communicating with each other, we need to get rid of all of our hatred that we have in our hearts. Things that people have done to us years ago, and faults and situations that happened that you can't even remember all the details of. You got to let all of that junk go. All right, it's very quiet. That's how I know I'm hitting home. That's good. All right, so 1 Corinthians. I'm a Bible preacher. I've been brought and taught up in biblical preaching. You might not believe in the Bible, but there's certain truths in the Bible that you can't argue with. And one of the scriptures that I'm going to read today is 1 Corinthians 13. It's a universal scripture that anyone, no matter where you go, no matter what religion you are, you can still base your thought upon this scripture and know at the end of the day that it's all true. So one of the things it says here, and I'm just going to read it real quick. It says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse number 1, it says, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I have become a sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. And though I have prophecy and understand all mysteries, though you're very well educated, right? And I acknowledge that, I have faith so I can remove mountains. I have great religion. And I have, so many wonderful thoughts. But I don't have charity. This scripture says that we're nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burnt, and have not charity, this profits me nothing. Charity, love, suffers long, is kind, is patient, is not envied. It does not get puffed up. It does not behave itself unruly. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily provoked. Thinketh no evil. It rejoices not in iniquity. It doesn't rejoice when it sees someone, when someone falls. Love doesn't rejoice when they see a person fall. But it endures, it bears all things. It endures all things. It hopes all things. Love or charity, it never fails. But rather I speak in prophecies and might speak in tongues. Some of the church folk know what I'm talking about with speaking in tongues, right? And all of this stuff shall cease. And it says in verse number 10, we're not perfect. And basically, all of these things that we hold so dear in life is going to fade away. Verse number 11 says, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. My brothers and sisters and all those who are of who are not acquiring to a particular gender. I want to be neutral here. We must understand that this celebration is all based upon love. I believe that's what John Brown was trying to acquire to is the fact that he knew that he wasn't going to be around forever. But he knew that he had to develop a place where people like me, a little black boy from Buffalo, New York, who was born in poverty, can look at him and say, wow, all the way through 59, he'd done so much work. In 2025, we're still talking about the work he's done up until 1959. That's the legacy. That's love. And I'm almost done, Dr. Dixon. But as we move forward in our world, as we move forward in our environment, we must understand that we must be mission-minded. We must bring awareness to hate and inequality and how we can overcome it with love. We must work effortlessly to ensure that equality and human rights for African Americans, LGBTQ plus people, all of that are in a place where we all can access that, okay? Am I saying something right? All right. We've come a long way in this country, but as we know, we still have so far to go. We are not born racist, we are taught racism. My aunt used to taught me, and I'm just gonna be transparent, my aunt used to teach me that I should hate white people. Then I went to Buffalo State College and met a man by the name of Tim Shattuck. Tim Shattuck was my closest friend. He wasn't a black guy, he was a white guy. And that changed the dynamic of me understanding that not all people that don't look like me are horrible people. Amen. We all, just because we have a little melatonin in our skin or we have a little different type of skin, that doesn't mean nothing. The fact of the matter is, where's your character? All right. As I close, Dr. Dixon, I must be honest that I grapple as a black man with fairness in our society and in our community. Our judicial system, our government, I'm not talking about locally, but I'm talking about nationally. We have a spirit of hate within our communities and in our nation. An example of this happened in May. Again, I'm from Buffalo, New York, so May 14th, 2022, There was a guy by the name of Peyton Gordon. He came in and killed 10 people, wounded 3. And it was all based upon what he's been taught as it pertains to white supremacy. And this happened right there in Tops on the east side of Buffalo. My mom doesn't live too far away from that particular place where that happened, and she oftentimes shops at that particular Tops. And one can only think that that could have been my mom because of the lack of love and hate within a person's heart. Friends, we all got to get rid of this hate in our hearts. We all have to figure out ways in which we can unite. Blacks need to unite with whites, and whites need to unite with blacks. Straight people need to unite with LGBTQ plus people. This is the only way that we're going to overcome a spirit of hate within our nation. All right. One more time. I'm getting ready to close. All right. We are divided. We're all living on edge right now. We don't know what's going to happen with our government. We don't know if there's going to be another mass shooting that takes place. We don't know if terrorism is going to come out and break out into the world. There's human trafficking happen. Poverty is an issue within our community. Mental health is a serious issue within our community. Health care is a problem within our community that we need to address. Okay, see, the mic went off. They trying to tell me something. They're trying to tell me something. Hello? All right. They're trying to tell me something. We live in a food desert, right? We know all of these problems exist. The question is, what are we all going to do about it as a community? How can we unite? How can we make sure that we make a statement of love that is an example for our nation? How can we speak up when we see injustices happen? Love is healthy. True love is beautiful, it is kind, it is not self-seeking, it is patient, and it is peaceful. My question to you today is, where's your love? That's what I'll say. I can continue to keep going, but I'll stop.
Always a great time. All right. So, again, thank you, Reverend Roberson. Your words were very inspiring and thought-provoking. Proclamations certainly make public gatherings like ours official. We are honored to have Crawford County Commissioner Christopher Seeley, not only a leader in our county, but also a leader in the state of Pennsylvania. We foresee him emerging as a leader on the national stage. Commissioner Seeley?
Thank you, Maria. You are too kind, I would say. And boy, this microphone is still on fire. So as Maria said, my name is Christopher Seeley, but I think all of you will remember me as the flat drink of Diet Coke you had to take after Reverend Roberson and before Mayor Kinder. But it's always a pleasure. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you so much to the committee for their kind invitation. And on behalf of my colleagues, Eric Henry and Scott Schell, we just want to send our greetings and our acknowledgement of the efforts that went on today, not just today, but for the last 200 years on sites just like this all across the United States. So on behalf of the commissioners, whereas the scourge of human bondage and slavery persisted throughout the early history of the United States and its territories until its eradication on June 19, 1865, signaling the first steps in an as yet incomplete journey towards civil equality and peace. And whereas famed abolitionist John Brown took up a cause larger than himself in his sacred mission to deal a death blow to slavery in the United States. In addition to his lengthy travels and widespread activities, Brown established a successful farm and tannery in our very own Richmond Township, Crawford County, to serve as a critical stop along the Underground Railroad, and in doing so, gave life-saving aid and comfort to over 2,000 fugitive slaves as they traveled northward. And whereas nearly 166 years since his execution at the hands of pro-slavery authorities following his capture during the storied raid on Harper's Ferry, Brown leaves a lasting legacy not only for his daring, his courage, and his convictions, but also his unique and prominent place in the history of Crawford County. And whereas the final abolition of slavery, John Brown's lasting and indefatigable dream, is celebrated around the country as Juneteenth, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Commissioners of Crawford County do hereby recognize and commemorate with the utmost solemnity the hallowed history of Juneteenth, the bravery and righteous convictions of John Brown, and the scores of abolitionists whose names have been lost to history. Be it further proclaimed that all residents of Crawford County, in spite of social, cultural, or ideological differences, are encouraged to reflect deeply on the impact the abolitionist movement has made upon the United States and to consider the progress still yet to be made. On behalf of the Crawford County Commissioners, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention. Maria, I would yield the balance of my time back to the Reverend, but I would assume it has to come to you next. So.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.
Who does this go to?
Oh, all right. It'll be my pleasure.
Thank you, Commissioner Seeley. Can we get another round of applause? That was a beautiful proclamation. And now let's hear from Miss Jamie Kinder, Mayor of the City of Meadville, Pennsylvania. She brags about being mayor in a lovely community nestled on the banks of French Creek, surrounded by the rolling hills of northwestern Pennsylvania. Mayor Kinder.
To be fair, I didn't write that. I brag about the people, right, who live in my town, who we get to take care of, and we get to have communion with, and we get to share this time and place with, right? That was here before I got here. That's just to let you know, Maria.
Okay.
I'm really excited to be here with you guys and so happy to see all of your faces, right? And the reason that is I get to stand on a ground where somebody understood humanity, right? He understood my humanity well before I was born, right? I am so proud to be here and emotional to be here and celebrate Juneteenth, which is the true day that America had freedom, right? The real day, right, that we get to celebrate together in that humanity. But not only that, we get to celebrate 2,500 people seeking freedom came across this place, right? 2,500 people seeking freedom from terror came across this place, and they were helped, and they were given aid, and they were sent on their way, right, to attain that goal. That is a beautiful thing, right? That is a beautiful legacy. That is a beautiful space to be sitting on right now, right? And without that legacy, I wouldn't be standing here with you guys, right? Let's be honest. I am emotional, and I just want to say one thing about this thing we're talking about, right? It's not pretty. Our history is not pretty, right? It's not easy, right? And it makes us feel angry, and it makes us feel guilty, and it makes us feel all of these emotions, right? But that's okay, because the beautiful thing is where we have come, right? And where we are now, and how we're gonna fight together for a shared dream and a shared vision, right? Of everyone, of all people, of every single person that lives in this place, in this state, in this country, right? To have equal opportunity, right? To be able to get the same things. Everyone needs the opportunity to find their own joy, right? And that's all we're asking, right? And that's what we're here for. And that's what we're fighting for each and every day, right? Not more, right? Just equal, right? Not more, just the same, right? So again, thank you for being here with me, and I'm going to read our proclamation. Whereas, let me take these off, I'm getting old. Whereas Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating the end of slavery in the United States, marking the date June 19th, 1865, when Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced the freedom of all enslaved people, 2 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas Juneteenth serves as a powerful reminder of the enduring pursuit of freedom, justice, and equality while honoring the strength, resilience, and contributions of African Americans throughout history. And whereas the historic John Brown Tannery in Guys Mills, Pennsylvania is a treasured site on the Underground Railroad where abolitionist, John Brown provided aid to freedom seekers and helped advance the cause of human liberty. And whereas the Tannery stands today as a symbol of courage, of sacrifice, of unwavering commitment to the ideals of justice and human dignity for all people. Whereas the annual Juneteenth ceremony at this historic landmark offers an opportunity for residents and visitors to gather in remembrance, education, and reflection while celebrating the process achieved and reaffirming the ongoing work toward racial equity and social justice. Now, therefore, I, Jamie Kinder, do hereby proclaim this day as a day to recognize the significance of our shared history and to honor the sacrifices made and the freedoms gained. Be it further resolved that we encourage all citizens to reflect on the meaning of freedom, to learn the lessons of the past, and to work together toward a future of equity and opportunity for all. Thank you.
Again, another round of applause. Thank you, Mayor Kinder. We now focus on the children, youth, and young at heart as Miss Gloria Shields narrates The Drinking Gourd by Jeanette Winter. She will also sing and play the lyrics outlined in the book. Miss Shields has spent many years in elementary education as a staff at Fairview Fairmont Outreach. I will present the activities that accompany her story. Miss Shields.
A little note about this story. Many slaves tried to escape by fleeing north, usually to Canada, because it was outlawed there, slavery was. By the 1840s, an organized group of free blacks, slaves, and whites formed a secret network of people and places that hid escaped slaves on their dangerous journey to freedom, a network that came to be known as the Underground Railroad. Now, it seems a harmless little folk song, Follow the Drinking Gourd, but hidden in the lyrics of the song were directions for following the Underground Railroad. The Drinking Gourd is the Big Dipper, which points to the North Star. Runaway slaves followed the stars north. They come across marks made in mud or in charcoal or on dead trees, and they would know that they were on the right trail. The river that ends between two hills was the Tombigbee River, and the second was the Tennessee River, and the Great Big River was the Ohio River. And they were guided from one hiding place to the next until they made it to Canada or other safe places in the north. And the Tannery here was one of those places on their way. Just gonna ago, before the Civil War, there was an old sailor called Peg-Leg Joe who did what he could to help free the slaves. Joe had a plan. He'd use hammer and nail and saw and work for the master, the man who owned the slaves on the cotton plantation. Joe had a plan. At night, when the work was done, he'd teach the slaves a song that secretly told the way to freedom. Just follow the drinking gourd, it said. When the song was learned and sung all day, Peg-Leg Joe would slip away to work for another master and teach the song again. One day, a slave called Molly saw her man, James, sold to another master. James would be taken away and their family would be torn apart. Just one more night together. A quail called in the trees that night. Molly and James remembered Joe's song, and they sang it low. And I hope when we do the chorus, people will join along to sing. When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. They looked to the sky and they saw the stars. Taking their little son Isaiah, old Hattie, and her grandson George, Molly and James set out for freedom that very night, following the stars of the drinking gourd. They ran all night through the fields till they crossed the stream to the woods. When daylight came, they hid in the trees, watching, listening for the master's hounds set loose to find them. But the dogs lost the runaways' scent at the stream. And Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and young George were not found. They hid all day in the woods. And at night, they walked again, looking for the signs that marked the trail. Well, the riverbank makes a mighty good road. The dead trees show you the way. Left foot, peg foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Walking by night and sleeping by day, for weeks they traveled on. Sometimes berries to pick and corn to snatch. Sometimes fish to catch. Sometimes empty bellies to sleep on. Sometimes no stars to guide the way. They never knew what lay ahead. There was danger from men who would send them back south, and danger from hungry beasts. But sometimes a kind deed was done. One day as they hid in a thicket, a boy from a farm found them. In a bag of feed for hogs in the woods, he brought bacon and cornbread to share. Singing low, they traveled on. Now the ends between two hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. On and on they followed the trail to the river's end. From the top of the hill they saw a new path, another river beneath the stars, to lead them to freedom. The drinking gourd led them on, and the song was almost done. When the great big river meets the little river, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Then they climbed the last hill. Down below was Peg-Leg Joe, waiting at the wide Ohio River to carry them across. And their spirits rose when they saw the old man. Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and George ran to the shore. Under a starry sky, Joe rowed them across the wide Ohio River. He told them of hiding places where they would be safe. A path of houses stretched like a train on a secret track leading north to Canada. He called it the Underground Railroad. It carries riders to freedom. The first safe house stood on a hill, and the lamp was lit, which meant it was safe to come. Ragged and weary, they waited, while Joe signaled low with a hoot like an owl. Then the door opened wide to welcome the freedom travelers. They were rushed through the house to the barn, for the farmers knew there were slave catchers nearby. A trapdoor in the floor took them under the barn to hide till it was safe to move on. Then Peg-Leg Joe went back to the river to meet others who followed the drinking gourd. With danger still near, too close for ease, the farmer sent the 5 travelers on. He drew a map that showed the way north on the midnight road to the next safe house, just over 2 hills. This time, James called the signal, the hoot like an owl, that opened the door to a Quaker farm. The travelers were led to a secret room hidden behind shelves. They rested here for many days and healed their wounds. Soft beds, full meals, new clothes, hot baths washed away some of the fear and pain. When they were strong enough, they traveled again from house to house on the Underground Trail, still following the drinking gourd north. Sometimes they traveled on foot, sometimes by cart. The wagon they rode near the journey's end carried fruit to market and the runaways to freedom. At last, they came to the shores of Lake Erie. Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and young George climbed aboard the steamship that would carry them across to Canada, to freedom. The sun shone bright when they stepped on land because they had followed the drinking gourd. And I'd like to sing one more chorus with you. Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man's waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd.
So that was amazing. Another round of applause. Thank you so very much. So just so you guys know that amazing story, we actually have some giveaways of the book. We have 3 books. So this is going to be our activity for the giveaway. When you have an opportunity, grab it. The first 3 people to complete it appropriately win a book. And again, thank you again, Ms. Shields, for this wonderful story brought to life with your guitar. We will have time to complete the activities during the Food and Fellowship and the cemetery tour. Amazingly, we have a renowned lecturer on John Brown right here in Guys Mills. Her name is Donna Coburn. She and her husband purchased the farm portion of the site and live here. I won't say more because you must listen to the exciting story and the energetic lecturer herself, Miss Coburn.
Okay. I think I'm pretty loud. I don't think you probably need me to use the microphone. Oh, okay. I grew up in Idaho, so I'm not from Pennsylvania. My husband grew up in Illinois. It was his grandfather that had the farm. And in the late 70s, his mom and his aunt decided they were Dr. Olson's daughters, they were going to sell the farm. Well, my husband as a child, they would come out here and they would spend summers. And he remembered looking above the barn and seeing the big moon when they'd come out in their old station wagon. And they'd have Thanksgiving or they'd come out for the summers and stuff, and he loved the farm. So when he found out his mom and his aunt were going to sell it, he decided that he was going to make an offer on it and try to buy it. In order to satisfy his aunt's debt, he came to Oregon. And guess what? I met him in Oregon. I was a divorcee. I had 3 little kids. And he asked me one day how I'd feel about moving to Pennsylvania, that he owned this John Brown farm. Well, I'd never heard of John Brown. I didn't even know who it was, to be quite honest. So we moved here in the 90s with my 3 kids, and I left everything I knew back out west. I was familiar with Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea, and like I say, I didn't know anything about John Brown. Well, I had to learn in a hurry. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what year. We opened the museum and we reopened it in 9/11 happened that year. So that's when we reopened the museum. And the first year, 2001. Okay, 2001. So anyway, somebody from the newspaper was asking me questions, or from the news out of Erie. I couldn't answer them. I didn't know anything about John Brown, really, to be honest with you. I just knew I was going to open this museum, and I really didn't think I'd ever have to talk about him. You know what I mean? How stupid is that? So I had to learn that summer, and I read everything that I could get my hands on. And so what I'm going to really do here today is just kind of go through the time in Crawford County. John Brown was born in 1800 to an abolitionist family in Torrington, Connecticut. When he was about 4 or 5, they moved to Ohio. And he's really easy to follow him because he was born in 1800, so 1812, he's 12 years old. every year that I say he's that old. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, in 1812, his dad had him deliver a herd of cattle up to Michigan. Now, stop and think about it. And they live in Ohio. And you're going to go to Michigan, and you're going to deliver this herd of cattle. It was a war of 1812, and the soldiers needed meat. And so he sends John Brown on this journey. I mean, I can't even visualize today somebody doing that. When he gets there, there's a little black boy about his size, poorly clothed, poorly fed, is ridiculed and made fun of and beaten with a shovel. And John Brown witnesses all of that. So that night, and thank goodness this is okay to be religious today, thank goodness that we can even discuss this, because you can't with some groups. That night when he got on his knees to say his prayers, he was asking God who protects this motherless, fatherless child. And his answer is, I'm protecting him, just like I'm protecting you. And I really believe that he was chosen at that point in his life to do great works. It was going to just take some time. And his whole life from then on, you know, was about equality. In 1816, he decided to become a preacher. So he left Ohio and he went up to the New England states. You can't hear? Or is it? Oh, no. Okay, all right. In 1816, he went up to the New England states to become a pastor. But he got an infection in his eye and he couldn't keep up with the studies. And so he had to return to Ohio. Now, I had a historian, I have not read this anywhere, but I had a historian who was doctor in front of his name from Union City tell me that he did stop off in Union City and taught school for a short period of time. I'm not sure how long before he went back to Ohio, probably to get funds to make the trip back. And so he knew this area quite well from going through here. And today, guess what today is? Today is his 205th anniversary with his first wife, Diane. And she's buried here. They were married in 1820, June 21st. And I found that kind of interesting when I was going through the dates. They had 3 children right off the bat. Well, you know, they didn't have birth control back then. 1821, 1823, and 1824. Diantha is showing some kind of mental instability. And so John Brown decides if he moves her to a new area, that might be beneficial for her mental health. And so anyway, they moved to New Richmond in 1826. I like to always point out the things that John Brown was while he was in this community. I always think that first of all, he was a father and he was a husband. And then he was a preacher. He taught and did the preaching in this area. And apparently he even started a church originally they went to Guy's Mills for church. And then eventually he started a church in the Tannery. He was also a teacher. The Honorable Delameter, when you're going back down 77, there's a Lyona Church sign there. That was Honorable Delameter. He was a judge, and that was his house. So the children would go there 6 months, and then his children would go there, and then they would come here for 6 months. And so that's how they taught the children back in those days. He also brought the first-blooded livestock to Crawford County, and it was English bulls. He obviously was a tanner, and he would not sell a hide until it was completely dry. So he was extremely honest, which tells me hides had to be sold on weight. And I'm really thankful today. This is the first time I've ever had anybody say that 2,500 slaves have gone through the farm here. I've said it years and years and years, and everybody tells me I'm nuts from Crawford County that no slaves ever went through our farm. But I did find a little Pennsylvania booklet that said 2,500 slaves went through this farm. So I'm very thankful today that you're acknowledging that, because I've said it for years and I got reprimanded. The person is deceased, so we won't talk about the person. Anyway, that always really bothered me because you read something in a history book, you know, and you think it's true. Anyway, John Jr. recalls his father hiding slaves one night. They heard, and he says he's 5 or 6. Now, he was born in 1821, so he would have been 5 in 1826. So I don't know if it happened here. It doesn't matter if it happened here to me, or it doesn't matter if it happened in Ohio to me. It just is reaffirming what had happened. But John Jr. said that his father had to hide these slaves in the woods. And they heard the hooves of the horses going down the road. And so they hid these people. It was a husband and a wife. And then once they knew that they were just townspeople and they weren't going to harm and they weren't slave catchers, his dad went out to look for the slaves that they had hidden. And he found them by the man's beating heart. That's how he found him. He could hear his heart, you know, beating in the woods. Anyway, the reason that John Brown Jr. remembers this so vividly is because when the slaves came into the house then, the woman picked John Jr. up and put her on his knee. And I think she maybe kissed him or something on the cheek. And he was just sure he'd been crocked black like his mother's pots. And that's why he remembers this so vividly, this dream, or, you know, this, not a dream, but, you know, and he was able to retell the story. Anyway, in 1831, Frederick passed away. They lost their first child. And I did bring a poster of all their kids. And my husband's grandfather did own at one time the John Brown Bible. It was sold at auction in February 6, 1963. Park Burnett sold it, and the Chicago Historical Society bought it. But anyway, all the dates and all the kids are there. They must have known something was wrong with little Frederick I because they had Frederick II in 1830. And then Frederick I died in 1831. Later on in life, they have a Sarah I, and she passes, so they name a Sarah II. So I think there must have been some kind of something that told them that maybe something was wrong with the little guy. In 1832, Diantha died during childbirth, and 3 days later, the baby died, and they put the baby in her arms, and she was buried in her wedding gown. That's okay. John Brown had 5 living children at this point, and he tried to live with a gentleman by the last name of Foreman, but he was newly married and wasn't working out well, so he ended up hiring Sarah Day to come in and tend his kids for him. Sarah probably had the hots for him, but guess what? He didn't have the hots for her. Sarah asked her little sister Mary to come and help with the sewing and mending. Mary was only 16. John Brown's 33, for crying out loud. But he ends up marrying Mary. And Mary goes on to have 13 of his 20 children. Okay? They married in 1833. In 1834, he writes a letter, and he's trying to figure out how he can obtain, and that's the word they use, obtain a black child. He wants to educate and bring a black child up in his home. They don't know if maybe they're going to have to buy one. They don't know if they're going to be able to get one. They don't know. But anyway, as early as 1834, he's trying to figure out they need an education, and he figures if the black children grow up with an education, they'll be able to break the chains that are binding them. And then in 1836, he moves, and he goes back to Ohio. From there, I'm really kind of done with the Pennsylvania stuff, but the one thing I kind of like to do is look at the Raiders. because I don't know if people know much about the raiders that he had with him. And so I did bring down my poster of the raiders. And of course I have my absolute favorites. When they're at the Kennedy house before the raid at Harper's Ferry, I read a children's book, and in there it says John Brown said to Annie. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I think to me it's a true quote. Not that he said it, but it's a true quote in the book. If you light a candle, it can light a room. Think about what one person can do. You know? If you just light that candle, you can, I mean, if I lit a candle here and it was fall time, you could probably see it over to the church, you know? You could see that little teeny tiny glimmer of light. And that really, really hit me when I was reading that children's book about John Brown. Whoops. After they took over the arsenal in Harper's Ferry, John Brown's son, Watson, got shot and he was dying. And he did say to Watson, if you die in a good cause, fighting for liberty. If you must die, die like a man. And I thought that was kind of gives you goosebumps. I mean, that he would say that. Also, of course, somebody said he knew Harriet Tubman. He did, and according to what I've read, he was the one that gave her the title General Tubman. He said that slavery would never end unless this land was purged with blood. And on December 2nd, 1859, he was hanged. 16 months later, John Jr. gave a interview to a newspaper, and he was in Ohio, and he said in this article, we didn't understand it at the time, but can you imagine how we felt as the soldiers were marching off to war under our father's banner? And if you'll remember, there's the song, John Brown's body lays smoldering in the grave, his soul keeps marching on. And then in 1865, of course, Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation. I have some of the raiders. Dangerfield Newbies was a freed black man, and his family was enslaved, and his wife had written him a letter and asked him, they had to get to buy them out of slavery. He had saved the money by what I'm reading, but the man would never sell the family to Dangerfield Newby. That's why he joined the Raiders. Osborne P. Anderson made it out, and he wrote a wonderful book called A Voice from Harper's Ferry. I really, if you're interested, some people aren't really interested possibly in John Brown, but that was one of the best books I've ever read, by Osborne P. Anderson. I get ahead of myself. My husband says he can never understand what I'm saying. Oh, it's called A Voice from Harper's Ferry, Osborne P. Anderson. Do you remember when I bought that book? Oh, I'm going to say this and I'm not going to get it right. There's a gentleman that killed a police officer in Philadelphia. Somebody knows who I'm talking about. Was a black man, and he was put in prison for killing a police officer. Maybe the name is, anyway, they reprinted it because of that gentleman. So anyway, that we were fortunate enough to be able to get that book because they reprinted it to make money for the gentleman that's in prison for, yes, okay? So that's how that book came about, that I was able to get it. Okay, Shields Green was brought on board by Frederick Douglass. And a lot of people sometimes get a little bit angry that Frederick Douglass didn't join the cause, but that wasn't Frederick's job to join that. We needed his voice later on in life. He needed to live. He couldn't die for this cause at that time because we needed his voice. And there's Shields Green. And then you have Watson, Owen, Osborne, and the Thompson boys. They're all of the same family. The Watson boys are related by marriage to the Browns. And I think it's Copeland. Now, I can't find anything I pull up. It's not referring to the Copeland kid, but they took Watson's body and another body, and Winchester College took those kids' bodies. They took their skin, they skinned them, and made gaming pouches out of their skin, and then they varnished the bodies and had them in Winchester College as displays. And I always thought it was the Copeland kid. They were finally recovered. I think it's like 1890s sometime. They were finally recovered, and they got to go to, Watson at least got to go to North Elba, New York with the family. Owen Brown and Charles Plummer Tidd, they also escaped. And the people in Townville, and let's see, Charles Plummer Tidd is here, and Owen is here. They escaped, and like I say, the people in Townville hid them out that first year. They came up through the Allegheny. And you're talking like, you know, October, November, December, coming up through there. I don't know how long it took them to get to Townville area. And I just, for books, I like Sanborn, but Sanborn was the Secret Six, so I kind of read that. I've read that book kind of reminding myself that he was one of the Secret Six. Redpath is my favorite book, and Redpath wrote the first book about John Brown, and he actually knew John Brown, so a lot of things are taken out of Redpath's book and used in all the books today. DeCaro did a religious book on John Brown that I found very interesting, and one day I had the radio on in the car, and he was talking about when they went in and the soldiers went in to capture John Brown that day. The soldier had, in the rush, had grabbed his dress sword. He didn't grab his army-issued sword. And so when he stabbed John Brown, it wasn't a killing blow. It didn't kill him. Had he had his army-issued sword, it would have killed him. So, I mean, to me, that God had a hand in that, because then his voice resonated from the jail. And, you know, so anyway, I don't know. I think God was in control of everything from start to finish in his life. Another book I like is Stan Cohen. He did a pictorial book. And so that was a very good book, too. And that's where most of my pictures come from, is Stan Cohen's book. Along the way in this John Brown thing, I have been fortunate enough to meet some really incredible people. Dr. Blockson, who owns the world's largest black collection, and he donated it to Temple University. I've been able to meet him. I've also had him here at the farm, and he signed his book for people. One year, I've also traveled across the state to go to one of his symposiums that was very interesting. I've also been to a symposium. I don't know who did the one in Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It was at the Heinz History Center. I've met two great-granddaughters. I got to fly out to California and meet one of his great-granddaughters by Diantha, and she was like a spitfire. I mean, she was just like all about what her great-great-grandfather did. And then I had another great-great-granddaughter visit the museum, and they were very quiet and very reserved people. And I hope by the time that she left that day that she had a lot more pride about her great-great-grandfather because of my excitement. But anyway, she was from Mary Day's side. I've had visitors from every state just about. And in closing, I always ask whoever I'm speaking to, what are you willing to die for? You know, I think about that, and I think, you know, I guess you'd say you die for your kids or stand in front of somebody for your kids, but would you, I don't know, you know, I mean, you really have to think about that. What are you willing to die for? And these Raiders, all these young Raiders, they were willing to die for somebody they didn't know and a cause. And so I mean, I think it's just like huge, you know, that they were willing to sacrifice their lives. So anyway, in closing, I just want to say thank you for coming today, and enjoy the rest of the day. Okay,
We'll dance. Thank you again, Ms. Coburn. Wasn't that amazing? Lots and lots of real interesting facts. Thank you. Juneteenth would not be complete without a medley of Negro spirituals chosen by our artist, Mr. Michael Prester, a great saxophonist and teacher, in fact, one of the best in our county. Mr. Prester.
This first rendition is a rendition of mine based on Wade in the Water, and keeping in line with the brilliance and genius of Black people. When slaves on the run on the railroad would hear this, because it was often a very efficient and effective device used by conductors along the railroad, namely Harriet Tubman, to signal that it was time to cross over, time to go, literally to get across the water, with way in the water. This next piece is called Hold On, because that's what you have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prester. How beautiful was that? Always, always amazing. Although we are nearing the end of the Meadville 1825 events, more are yet to come. Mr. Tom Edmonds, Chair of Meadville 1825, will share details about them. Mr. Edmonds.
Thank you, Maria. Can you hear me? Is this on? This is so amazing. So many people have come out to this event. I've been in the history business for 40 years along the East Coast, and I've never seen so much interest in history here in Northwest Pennsylvania. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate. Give yourself applause. Thank you. If you could all turn to page 3. I'm not going to read aloud names, but look at page 3. This is a bunch of hardworking people. Our sponsors are dear to us. We started planning this 2 years ago, so this doesn't happen overnight. So let's have a round of applause for these 3 categories, please. Thank you. Just for fact checking, the farm was, the Brown family moved here in 1826, but John Brown purchased the property in December of 1825, so that's how we could sneak it in to this event. So if anybody was curious about why we were trying to shuffle this in, that's why. I want to mention we have 24 programs this year. We're not even halfway through. Our next program is with Commissioner Seeley, who's going to have an open house at the courthouse. In 1825, the second courthouse was built. The first one was a log cabin. And Chris is going to tell us all about the history of the courthouse, of which we have the 4th one right now on Diamond Park. So thank you very much. If you look us up on Facebook, Meadville 1825 has all the information you need about our next program. So thank you. Our next speaker is our dear Armindia. Where is she?
I'm here.
Okay, you're right behind me.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you,
okay,
Tom.
my dear. Let's have a round of applause for Armindia, please.
Well, I tell you, I'm just going to thank each of you. And look at the program and think about all the other thank yous I would have said. Because the food is getting cold, my goodness, and I want to make sure we have our fellowship dinner and get a chance to talk. But before I say good evening, Donna, will you come up? Okay. Donna, we would like to thank you for your dedication to the legacy of John Brown.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's eat, everybody. Okay.